again, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. My name is Mars, and today we're going to be looking at who the best 7-star buffers or support units are in the global version of the game. So, by popular request, many people asked after my tank video, how would I rank support units or how would I rank other types of units? So today we're going to kind of go over each of the ones that we have, as well as look forward to some that we may have in the future and kind of assess them according to relative value. So, similar to last time, remember that this is an approximate sort of personal ranking that is comprised of my personal opinion. So, don't get mad at me if, a unit that you love is ranked lower than others, because we're specifically looking at buffing and support utility in this guide more than anything else. So this can help guide your decision about which units are safest for you to invest in for the long term, especially when it comes to using unit of choice tickets. So, units are not bad if they're not in first place. It just means they're not the best. And so with that, we're going to look at this support unit that I think kind of is in last place, which is Lunara, and that's because when you look at her kit, her buffing skill, Elven Song, is only a 90% buff when you have it enhanced, which is not bad, but it's not great. We have a lot of people who have stronger auto buffs that they cast on themselves. However, the thing that is really nice about it is that the heal and the refresh on it are super strong compared to most people. So if you're looking for a bard unit that can buff and heal a lot and refresh a lot, then Lunara is pretty good in that. However, the buffing quantity of 90% is pretty unimpressive, and because she's a bard, she's not able to combine that with any other support abilities, if she really had them. Because I think most people are going to use her for Aerial Ray Chaining, which it's a very good thing to use her for sure. However, I think as far as the whole buffing role goes, you're only going to use her if you have somebody who's a true gas guzzler with MP. So people like Sora may actually benefit from her, because Sora buffs himself in many ways. So she could defensively buff the party with this and also keep Sora's MP topped. So she's definitely useful if you have her, but in my opinion, not the best 7-star buffer. And for that reason, she sits on the bottom. Romsey, I think, is next to her, and that's because his buffs are slightly better with, Hero's Rhyme +2, better buffs at 100%, weaker refresh and MP refresh here. Overall, pretty much the same. He does have some added utility, which makes him a little bit better with Entrust, which is a huge deal. It's one of my favorite and most frequently used skills in the game, so I love it. And he has single target breaks for 60% after enhancements for Weapon Break and Mind Break. Those are 60%, and at 7 stars he can dual cast them, which is great, and he can put up a shield for all allies. However, he cannot do any of those things at the same time that he is buffing the party with Hero's Rhyme. So you basically get to pick and choose, do I want to break or do I want to buff? You cannot do both at the same time. It is worth noting that for turns 1 and 2 you could do dual cast breaks, and then turns 3 through 5 you could sing, so that you would have basically a 5-turn rotation. However, it would only be breaks that you had 100% uptime with, and buffs would be up only 3 out of 5 turns. So overall, Romsey's a good unit. He, in my opinion, I think he's better served as a breaker for those single target breaks. They're pretty good. They work for all the fights that we currently have, so no complaints there. But other than that, I think that he's kind of lackluster because Hero's Rhyme is a song after all. So I think that that's ultimately his weakness, just like Lunara. Now, the next bard that we're going to look at, and you'll notice a trend, the bards kind of sit at the bottom, and it's because of inflexible utility. And Roy is actually, he's definitely a step up, and that's because he combines multiple utility components with his songs. So even though he is locked into songs, he is able to do a lot more with them. Now this whole page of stuff is super confusing, and Roy is a very confusing unit if you're just looking at his page. However, the important thing to note is his change repertoire is an important cooldown skill that allows him to kind of shortcut his whole song rotation, which was something he really needed at 7 stars. It's not that amazing of a song, because it's only 80% buff for 1 turn to all allies, and then a 55% AoE full break for all enemies, which that's a fairly good AoE full break to have, you know, on a first turn, and it's good enough buffs. And then he restores some HP and some MP, as well as fill the LB gauge rate for all allies. So it is a really thick ability in terms of the number of things it can do. But more importantly, it unlocks his ability to use, let's see, this is change repertoire. Where is it? Change repertoire. Oh shoot, I forget. There it is. Fool's Ballad. Okay. It enables him to use Fool's Ballad the following turn, which normally you'd have to take a few turns to get to that point. And if you go down to the bottom and see the enhanced Fool's Ballad, it grants an AoE 45% full break to all enemies. Or sorry, it gives an AoE 40. Yes, so it's still the 40% full break, 110% buffs to all allies while singing, and then healing and refresh. And then it grants your victory to the brave too. So first turn you use change repertoire. Second turn, you use Fool's Ballad +2, and this is probably the turn that you're most vulnerable because your breaks are kind of not that amazing for 1 turn, but as soon as you get to victory to the brave +2, that's when you probably have his most powerful song, and you can spam it every single turn, and that's a 130% all stat buff with a 50% all stat break to all enemies with some HP and some MP to boot. So really good because it combines a lot of things into one skill, lots of buffs, decent breaks, some healing and some refresh, and the ability to just use it over and over. It only takes 3 turns to get to instead of like 7. So overall that's fairly good. Alternatively, you can use him strictly as a buffer and use his Limit Burst only, which gives 134% buffs to 1 turn for 1 turn to all allies along with some HP and MP. And then it gives him access to Draconic Reverberations, which is this skill here. It gives access to his strongest buffs at 140% for 2 turns, in addition to the strongest breaks that he has, which is 60% to all enemies, some MP, and some LB fill rate, and then it allows him to use Draconic Reverberation again. So this is actually the most powerful skill that you want him to use, and he does use it every 2 turns, so yeah. My recommendation would be to work towards getting that LB filled. It is a little bit fat at 30. It's not too bad. Get that Limit Burst, cast it. It means you're going to have to go a couple turns without breaks, which I think is the main drawback to it. So you may want to use someone who can supplement with some breaks until he gets that fully up, and then just spam Draconic Reverberation. Enjoy AoE breaks, and these are pretty good. Enjoy some buffs, and these are pretty good. Enjoy some LB fill rate, some MP. So yeah, all in all, complex unit. He offers quite a bit in terms of what he can do within a single turn. For that reason, I'd rank him pretty well amongst the bards, and he's definitely not beyond usefulness, that's for sure. I like that he has buffs and breaks rolled into a single kit, and as you'll see with Elephim, that's actually kind of a big deal. So, speaking of Elephim, I would rank her slightly higher than Roy because her buffs and her breaks are better. So she follows a similar principle to Roy without being so complicated. She has a whole bunch of these songs here that grant different abilities. She can... The most important combo is that they can buff and they can break at the same time while either restoring MP or HP. So if you're looking for defensive breaks and buffs, you go with Spiritual Rondo. If you need offensive breaks and buffs, you go with Passionate Fugue. So really nice to have both of those in combination. The big thing that I think is amazing with Elephim is her Limit Burst, which is an AoE 75% break to all enemies for all stats, which is huge. That's a very strong break for 3 turns. And then she has a 145% all stats buff for 3 turns to all allies, which is amazing, plus a flat percentage restore of HP and MP, which is given instantly, it's not like a given over turns, and then it allows her to use Rainbow Wings Glissando, which she gets for the following 1 turn. And this is a 2-turn song that is super thick with healing, super thick with MP refresh, increases magic and spirit for 2 turns by 170%, which is very good, and it gives all allies dual cast, which I don't know why you would ever want to do that, but basically what you're going to want to do is your first turns, you're going to want to use your defensive buffs and breaks, so you get those breaks on the enemy and the buffs on your team, and then once she has her LB, you use her limit burst, and then you use Rainbow Wings Glissando for 2 turns, and then her limit burst again, and you repeat that rotation, that 3-turn rotation ad infinitum. So Elifim is awesome because she combines breaking and buffing super effectively into a single roll. Roy's a little trickier because he leaves you open for a turn or two at different times to be slapped by the boss without any breaks, so that kind of sucks. But Elifim does not do that. She gives you the opportunity to keep your defenses as strong as possible with some attack and magic breaks and defense and spirit buffs, which is awesome. So keeps your party in the game even if you can't maintain her 3-turn rotation, and with some of that LB fill rate stuff that you can hook her up with, pretty easy to get that. I'd say her only main drawback when comparing her to other buffers is that she doesn't offer any other utility that she can use in between using her limit burst. It's basically HP, MP, and that's it. Other buffers now and in the future, they have the opportunity to give damage mitigation and things like that that are super helpful. So overall, Elifim's a very strong unit. I think she's excellent. I know she was massively underrated when she came out, and I think that's going to continue to be the case. I think she has a fairly bright future, though, as we continue to find ways to compress unit slots. So she does 2 things in one, breaks and buffs. So great unit, love her. Wish I could pull 2. Would really love to use an Elifim. So speaking of units that I love to use, we're taking a look at Zargabaath. Zargabaath, who right now I strongly believe is the best buffer in the game. Without a doubt, he really has no stiff competition. Let's be perfectly honest. As a 7-star unit, he is incredible. He has the most ridiculous stats, the most ridiculous passives. I could talk about Zargabaath all day, and in fact I had a guide where I covered him completely as a brand new 7-star unit, but we'll keep it down to the nitty-gritty as far as the buffing support utility, where we're going to look at Arcadia's Might. That's his turn 1 buffing skill, 140% buffs, 40% mitigation, and then he gives himself double cast for 4 turns, which is excellent. Really nice cooldown ability. The buff amount is not as high as some other buffers now and in the future, but it's good enough, and the 40% damage mitigation is pretty good. And then he gives himself 2 turns of double cast to do whatever he wants with a lot of double casty stuff. I find myself using Rejuvenate a lot because this is a good single target, full health and 50% MP fill. Very nice to use, especially good on units like Grimlord Sakura, who use a ton of MP, or Sora, who use a ton of MP. Anybody who casts a whole ton of times, use this skill on them, they'll basically never run out. It's super good. Because when you have it enhanced, also it gives them re-raise, and it gives them a refresh over 5 turns, as well as a heal over 5 turns. So really strong ability, very nice to use. I use it very frequently, and you can double cast it after using a cooldown skill, so very nice. The other buff/support skill that Zargabaath has is Prismatic Barrier. This is a cooldown that I use very frequently because it gives you break resistance for 3 turns, and you can keep this up a pretty good amount of the time. I found with a lot of the bosses that we deal with, break resistance is only necessary on thresholds or when you know you're triggering certain attacks from the boss. So if you're thinking and you're aware of what your boss is doing, this is a great ability to use to help mitigate some of those incoming breaks. Now in addition to that, it also buffs resistance to all elements by 60%, which is great. And if that falls off, you can always supplement it with Bastion for lesser elemental buffs for 3 turns. And I don't think that one got enhancements. Yeah, it did not. So overall, excellent combination of stuff. You can do some single target buffing as well that removes breaks. Very nice to have in case you need it, because you'll find that once you pop Prismatic Barrier, you'll be like, alright, what am I going to do for 2 turns while I wait to do my next thing? Or after Arcadia's Might, rather. You'll pop Arcadia's Might and be like, alright, I have 2 turns to do whatever I want, so what am I going to do? That's up to you. But the big thickness, the best skill that he has is his Limit Break. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. Limit Break. Alexander Crest is his best ability by far. Very good skill. It is very expensive to get at 40 limit crystals. However, what it does is it buffs attack, defense, magic, and spirit by 150% for 2 turns to all allies, which is very good. That's as good as some future 7-star units, as well as some of the ones that we currently have. And he gives 50% damage mitigation for 2 turns to all allies, which is as strong as, if not stronger than, some 7-star tank limit bursts. So this is a great way to help your party's survivability, and it's something that makes Zargabaath truly unique. Because if you give him a little bit of care and he's able to use this ability every 2 turns, your party's going to have 50% mitigation up at all times, which there's no other way to do that in the game, not now, not in the future, and 50% mitigation basically means that your incoming damage is cut in half. So it's excellent, it is super amazing. Get him with as much LB fill rate stuff equipped as you can, and it's relatively easy to get it. I usually combine him with Entrusters in my party because I found a lot of Entrusters will have free turns. So using them to help his limit burst stay up all the time, brilliant idea. It is admittedly sometimes difficult to keep that limit burst up 100% of the time. So after I use Arcadia's Might on that first turn, right, this cooldown skill, I will only use it again if I have no other choice. I will do everything that I can to keep using this limit burst, and then when I have a turn where I can't, then that's when I use Arcadia's Might again. So overall, Zargabaath is who I rank as our current victor easily, because, I mean, we haven't even touched on all the other things that he can do, from 100% evade tanking very, very easily. You don't even have to use him as an evade tank. You can just equip him with tank gear and give him provoke, and if he's used his limit burst, he's got that 50% mitigation, which is as good as the best provokes in the game. He can just tank if he wants to. His stats get that high. So really incredible unit. So much versatility. Skills like Rejuvenate, which are truly unique, are very, very good. And that 50% mitigation on his limit burst is insane, especially since you can keep that up 100% of the time with a little bit of care. So that's why for me, Zargabaath is he's my go-to. I'm going to be using him a lot. I will continue to use him a lot, and I don't think I'll replace him anytime soon. He's been indispensable for many of the fights that I've been in. And especially because I combine him with other breakers. So I'll use Lid or Lauren with him, so that I've got breaking covered. With Elephim, you just have the drawback of not having damage mitigation as part of her limit burst. So somebody else needs to buff your damage mitigation. And that's just the trade-off. So Elephim, great if you have a mitigator in your party. Zargabaath, better if you have a breaker in your party. So yeah, that's why he's number 1. Now, I will do the responsible thing, and we're going to look at some of the future buffers that we should have coming down the pipe. No telling when these will come, but they will come eventually. So the first one we're going to take a quick look at is CG Nichol, and he's one that a lot of people are really excited about because he does have a very strong kit. He has, on his limit burst, which I think is a very good ability, 150% all stat buffs, as well as all stat break removal, and he restores flat HP and MP. So it's basically an upgraded version of the limit burst that we have right now for him. Very, very good. No complaints there. He gets some additional spells, which we don't care about. We really don't. Down the line, he'll have some additional passives and abilities that we'll be able to unlock through quests, which will make him stronger. It's basically free enhancements. This is a nice ability that gives 50% damage reduction for 3 turns. And it's on a 4-turn cooldown, so you can't keep it up 100% of the time, but you can keep it up a lot. So it's very good, and it helps him stay competitive with Zargabaath, who can keep 50% mitigation up 100% of the time. Now, most of us are familiar with his kit. He does combine dual cast buffs with occasional other support utility things like light, dark, ice, water resistance. So he's got the buffs that also combine with MP and HP refresh and LB fill rate or limit crystal fill stuff. All of this combo stuff is still very good. What he gets at 7 stars that makes him a little bit better is his turn 1 buffs, buff and mitigation combo that he can do, which is Phantom Barrier Formation, which gives 40% damage reduction and fills the Esper gauge, and then he can do 150% all stat buff and fill the Esper gauge as well. So most of the time with Nichol, turn 1, you'll be dual casting these two together so that you get those 150% buffs as well as some Esper orbs, and then 40% mitigation with some Esper orbs, making Nichol's turn 1 better than Zargabaath's turn 1. This is strictly better than Arcadia's Might because the buff is a hair stronger, plus you get some Esper orbs out of the deal. Now aside from that, the other cooldown skill that he gets is a single target MP recovery with attack and magic break removal and plus 175% attack and magic, and fills 5 limit crystals. So this is nice if you're trying to do some burst damage with a target that doesn't buff themselves by more than 175%, and it also removes their attack and magic break. So niche, I don't think it's that impressive, but if you need it, it's there. And we'll touch real quick on his enhancements. His MP recovery skill got better, his status resistance passives got better. These buff skills got better, but not in, I don't know, I don't think they're that good. These are his bigger buffs that he currently has that buff your offenses and break your defenses, or buff your defenses and break your offenses. What they did with the enhancements is they made the self-break much weaker, and they made the HP or MP refresh much stronger. So these are okay enhancements, but I don't think you're going to be using these abilities for most of Nichol's rotation, because most of the time you're going to be pining for that sweet limit burst for those 150% buffs, all break removal, and then HP and MP, and then you can do other stuff for 2 turns before using his limit burst again. So ultimately, I think these are kind of a waste. I don't think anybody will really use these much. I could be wrong. I could be missing something about these. I think the very strong HP heal is very good. The strong MP refresh is very good. Maybe you might use it for those things. But in my opinion, it's not really that impressive. And then they also enhanced his ice water resist buff, which for the time that you actually need it, this will come in handy, but it's going to be super niche. So overall, I would rate him on par with Zargabaath. I don't think he's better than Zargabaath, because even if I have both of them fully leveled and ready to go, I think there are times where I would choose one over the other. I think I would choose Zargabaath when I want somebody who can provide better elemental resistance coverage, somebody with better damage mitigation, or somebody who can do like some of that provoke, evade, tank nonsense, or just be all around tankier. But Nichol is someone that I might choose if I want to have better AoE healing or AoE MP refresh, or limit fill or limit burst fill rate. Nichol has a lot of those bells and whistles on his kit that do make him a very good unit. So when he comes out, I definitely think he'll be on par with Zargabaath. I'm pretty sure they're going to be tied for first, in my opinion. I think as far as like the strongest utility piece, that Zargabaath limit burst with the 50% mitigation, it is so good. I can't overstate how strong this is to have this up all the time. And for that reason, I will probably use Zargabaath more than Nichol. But that being said, I think they do rank relatively equally to one another. Let's also take a quick look at a couple of units that will be coming our way eventually. Well, that might be in the case of Primrose. I think that's her name, right? I can't read Japanese, and I'm pretty sure that's her name. Anyways, she is from the Octopath Traveler collaboration that was in the Japanese version of the game. We've received most of the collaborations that JP has, and I don't really see any reason to believe that we won't receive this one as well, especially because it's a Square Enix game, so acquiring the rights to do an Octopath Traveler collab would be super easy. So Primrose is a very strong buffer, an extremely awesome unit. She has a ton of cool stuff in her kit. Starting with her limit burst, she has a super strong AoE buff, HP refresh, and MP heal with limit burst crystal fill. Very strong, 200% all stat buffs, very strong heal, split over 5 turns, very strong MP refresh, split over 5 turns. This is a great limit burst, very strong, 200% stat buffs, excellent, love it. She only has to do it every 5 turns, which makes keeping uptime on it super easy. Other than that, she does have a lot of buffs that grant your party physical or magical beast, dragon, spirit, or plant killers, which are very helpful. You can also use some of her cooldown skills or other skills to unlock stronger versions of those. So for example, if you use one of her cooldown, I think it's this cooldown skill, if you use this one, it unlocks the ability to buff attack, defense, magic, spirit by 160% for 5 turns, and it grants 40% magical and physical, beast, dragon, spirit, and plant killers, which is very, very helpful. This is a great way to enable your party to do more damage. Very strong. I do believe these are locked behind a cooldown or perhaps behind her limit burst. I can't read too much Japanese and it's difficult to decipher it all, but it is very good. These can be dual cast, so you are able to do like both of your defensive buffs in one turn if that's what you need. She also has other utility pieces like being able to imbue a target with dark, which is nice if you happen to need it. I don't see that being used all that much because it is single target and it is dark, which is one of the less favored ones. However, in looking over her kit, I think the one thing that she's missing, as far as I can tell, because again, I can't read Japanese. I'm gonna try. I think she has only one. I think she only has. Oh no, she doesn't. Okay, she has a couple of damage reduction abilities. This one is a cooldown skill. This one is up here. So she does have some damage reduction, which is nice. It's not as much as units like Zargabaath or Nichol, but it is pretty good. And yeah, overall, I think Primrose is an exceptionally good buffer. She's great with the buffing, she's great with the utility support, the HP and MP refresh. Overall, a very good unit. I think that simply because of just how good this limit burst is, I would edge her out above anyone else that we've looked at so far, but not by so much that if you already have Zargabaath or Nichol that you would like feel compelled to pull for her. So very strong buffer, very strong utility kit, love her, very, very good. No complaints here. Now the one that I think most people are going to be keen on and going to be watching for is Yuraisha, because she should be coming before Primrose. She should be coming up real quick. She is a very, very good buffer. Her TMR is nice, 40% spirit, 20% MP. It's very good. And her STMR is a good hat for support units. A lot of spirit and a lot of HP with some auto refresh. So overall, nice stuff there. Her most notable thing that a lot of people got really excited about on her release was her limit burst, which 35 crystals is cheap, makes it cheaper than ones like Zargabaath's, so it's going to be a little bit more accessible. And for 3 turns you can buff all stats by 170%, as well as put a 3000 HP barrier on the entire party, and buff limit burst fill rate by 200%. This I would consider to be a limit burst on par with Zargabaath's, because you can buff LB fill rate through Riku's pouch by the same amount, so you know, it's very nice that this is rolled into her limit burst, but you can get that somewhere else. Barriers you can get through other units, but it is good, but I don't think any of these things even together make it better than having 50% mitigation. However, it is worth noting that she does have a really strong kit that has a lot of stuff. She has so many things that you can rely on. She has double cast, she can multicast a lot of her skills. She can remove breaks from allies and apply them to herself. She can apply light, dark, wind, and earth resistance, which is very similar to Nichol's kit except with different elements. One of the big things is that she also has 20% physical or magical mitigation buffs, which is super handy if you're using tanks that don't have split mitigation provokes. So if you're using anybody besides Y9 Noel and Sieghard, these buffs are going to be handy for helping your tanks and your party survive better, so that's very good. Her non-limit burst buffs are also strong. She has 30% damage mitigation that she can keep up at all times. She can dual cast most of her abilities. One of the things that's kind of a nuisance, but it's also okay, is that she can do a 130% all stat buff to the party and hurt herself. You know, it's there if you need it. It's not too bad. She can also grant beast and demon killers to single target members of the party, and then her cooldown skills enable her to kind of get into her LB rotation sooner. So AoE 3 turn, 170% attack magic, and self 4000 damage attack, and fill limit crystals, and then grant some abilities for 3 turns, and then she also has 40% damage reduction, and some ailment resist. So all in all, super strong kit, so many great things. In my opinion, I have Nichol, I have Zargabaath, and because I have both of them, I don't need to touch Yuraisha. She is a very good unit, but I don't think she's so good that it would make you need to pull. And that was kind of the same verdict with Primrose. If I were to go, and I think Primrose would come out after Yuraisha. So for that reason, I think that if you have 0 buffers, go for whichever one comes on a banner first, which will probably be Yuraisha down the road, or it'll be Nichol when he comes on a like a 7-star banner when those come out. Choose whichever one you like between these. The only one that I think is a substantially better buffer is going to be Primrose, because she does offer some of those killers and some other, like, her limit burst is silly. It's silly good, and then she has 4 turns to do whatever she wants after that. So, very good units all around. I think, honestly, that's one of the things that I love about this game, is that they've made the support super accessible, and most of them are super good in some way or another. I could see myself using Elephim in high levels of play even a year from now. I could see myself using Zargabaath. Any of these buffers, they're great to use. So, and I say this every time in my videos, choose whichever unit that you want and that you like to use the most, and they're the ones that they're gonna get the most value out of, and there's nothing wrong with that. So go for the one that you want. I think right now Zargabaath is king. I think Zargabaath is always going to have a place on your team because of that 50% mitigation on his limit burst. However, that being said, you do have other options opening up in the future that provide different utility benefits. And I do have to say, as another tiny disclaimer as I'm wrapping up this video, I may not have covered every possible breaker, or buffer, rather. I may not have covered all the support options that are out there. This is strictly looking at 7-star ones, and this is looking at some of the 7-star ones that we have right now. In the future, there are other examples of units that can fill the support role, like CG, what's his name? Ignacio, because he can do party buffs of 180%. And he can imbue allies with fire and all these other super cool things. These are not the only support units that are out there, but these are the ones that are out there that are basically your buffers. These are your dedicated buffers and support units. But of course, as always, there's a chance that I forgot something from the JP version of the game because I don't play it. But these are the ones that I hear talked about the most, in addition to the ones that I currently have and have played with from the global version of the game. So, did I miss anyone? Did I miss any major points? Honestly, it's hard to pick a clear-cut winner in all cases because the more meta buffer units between Zargabaath, Nichol, Yuraisha, and Primrose, and Elephim, they all provide unique niches that would mean that in certain fights, one of them is going to beat out all of the rest of them. So, for that reason, it's hard to say one is conclusively the best. However, I'm extremely partial to Zargabaath, and I probably always will be. Oh, and I realized just as I was wrapping up the recording of the video that I completely left out Seaside Nichol. Now this is because I have not used Seaside Nichol. I only have one of him, and I tend to forget units that I don't play with. However, Seaside Nichol is a unit that is definitely worthy of note because he does provide very strong defensive buffs, especially through his limit burst. He gives that HP barrier, very good. Ice and water resistance, this is nice. And then the other thing that's super notable with him is that he also has some of that split mitigation with physical, magical, and then he can buff it for all allies as well, just slightly weaker. This makes him an extremely good defensive buffer. I think part of the reason that I forgot him is because he's not a great multi-purpose buffer. He's definitely one of the best when it comes to helping to keep your allies alive, but he's not the best when it comes to helping your allies stay alive and get your opponents dead. I think that's kind of where he falls behind and part of why I forgot him, but I do think he's absolutely worthy of mention because there are plenty of damage dealers out there who buff themselves, and you may be running a breaker outside of Seaside Nichol anyway, so it doesn't matter whether or not he can break like someone like Elephim can or whatever. He has super strong defensive abilities on lockdown, so for that reason, very good buffer. I would have to rank him below Elephim and Zargabaath though, just because he only does the defensive buffing, and of course he has other things. You know, he can restore HP, he can restore MP. These are all great things. but I don't think HP or MP recovery are like the major benefits that you need out of a support buffer type of person. So if your party's struggling to survive things, definitely consider Seaside Nichol as your option, because that mixed mitigation of physical and magical mitigation, it does stack with general mitigation, which he also has, and it stacks with cover mitigation, so your tanks will basically not die. And yeah, very good unit in my opinion. He's worthy of note, but for me, I don't see myself using him because his rotation basically limits him to using these defensive buffs and not a lot else. So I think in most cases I would prefer to use someone like Elephim, who can do buffs and breaks, or someone like Nichol, who can do buffs, limit burst fill rate, mitigation, elemental resistance, kind of all of those things, break removal and all that stuff. So anyways, my bad. Nobody get mad at me that I forgot about Seaside Nichol. I remembered, but it was after I finished the video. So I apologize. Thanks everybody for watching. Let me know how you would have ranked units differently from me, because everybody loves their units for their own unique quirks and their own unique reasons. So let me know what you think of this list. Was I pretty accurate, or how would you have changed things? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see everybody in the next one.